I'm going to start the recording mechanism. This should be a pretty good demo. So where are you at today?
Outside of Chicago, we had in the suburbs,
Okay,
Rockford.
excellent.
It is nice out. It's 75 and sunny. It's really good.
Oh yeah, it's real nice here too. Hello, this is Ben with Tracker Products. Did somebody just join the call?
Smart doll.
Hey, Mark, Ben Townsend. How are you doing?
Oh, better than I deserve.
Good. Good to hear. And I'm only making the assumption that everybody on the line here today is residing in Anchorage somewhere. Would that be true for you?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Well, how is it in Anchorage today?
Rainy and cold.
Okay. What's your definition of cold? I know we're heading into that time of year, but what is cold?
Well, cool. In the 50s.
Okay. That's not too bad. And sounds like we had somebody else join the call. Hello, this is Ben Townsend with Tracker Products. Who just joined the call?
Molly.
Hi, Molly. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We're waiting on a couple other people to join the call. Paul is the main person that I'm waiting on, and he jumped on a moment ago and said they were moving to a different location and they were going to call back in. So we're still waiting on him.
Okay.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Just to make good use of our time, since I've got Molly and Mark here, why don't you tell me real quick what you guys do? That way we've got that all out of the way by the time they show up. If you don't mind.
You start, Mark.
Yeah, infrastructure services manager for the municipality. We have an overarching responsibility. This particular project is specific to Anchorage Police Department, which is a segue into Molly.
Okay.
Yes, and I am the IT manager for the IT team here, and also oversight of the technology projects that we take on.
Now, so what is Paul? I mean, so are you also contractors, or do you work directly for the city or municipality?
I'll take that. So we're all employees direct to the municipality. We have a overarching IT organization, and Paul and myself are part of that. Paul is a project manager.
Got it.
And he's been tasked, I think, with just researching. I don't know that his scope is beyond that.
Okay.
And the reason for setting up this demo with you.
Perfect. And so I guess just to make totally clear, what you understand we're doing here today is evidence tracking, digital evidence, physical evidence. That's what we do. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Very good. Just wanted to make sure that you had a ballpark idea of what we were going to accomplish. I didn't want you sitting in on something that was completely different.
When you say physical evidence, do you mean like actual found property and stuff like that, or do you mean? Because I didn't know we were.
Yeah, so that's good. You know what? That's good. Maybe we get this out right now. What was your expectation of this demo here today?
It was my understanding that it was just to track digital evidence. So whether that's imagery or video or audio or things that come
Sure.
through some kind of electronic device.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is a major part of what we do. We do equally as well. We do physical and digital evidence. So the guns, drugs, and money's the whole bit. So probably the biggest difference you'll notice in this is when we log in and I begin to show you our software, you would bring up a case and there's one tab that has all the physical evidence on it, and then the very next tab over has all of the digital evidence in it. And we do chain of custody and the whole bit with both of those. So, maybe Paul's intro into this was, hey, let's look at this for the digital evidence aspect. But I can show how it's going to work with both of them if you choose. And you certainly could say, hey, we'll just use it for one or the other, but it does work very well for both of those. Does that create it?
And hey, everybody,
Sorry, yeah. That's Mike. So Mike is. It sounds like we got maybe Paul coming in. So we'll jump back into that in 1 second once we get them on the line and everybody settled down.
Appreciate that. Anybody, can you hear me?
I can. Is this
Hello?
Paul? Paul?
I'm gonna dial in.
So maybe I can hear him, but he cannot hear me. Paul, can you hear me? This is Ben Townsend.
Had to do the phone thing.
Maybe I could see it just fine. I just couldn't.
I'll post up a note here on the screen.
It's a 312
757 3121.
I'm going to go ahead and mute him so that he doesn't have feedback on his line. Sorry about that, Mark and Molly. 1 second while we get them all arranged. Are you Mark and Molly? Are you still able to hear me?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, very good.
Hello.
Hey, Paul, this is Ben Townsend. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ben. Sorry, took a bit to get this computer in this conference room working, but
No
we're
problem.
good now.
I was able to hear you on the other line, but I could see that you were logged in, but I guess you could not hear us.
No, yeah, couldn't hear a thing.
It's all right. Well, we've got each other on here now, and we also have Mark Dahl and Molly Lerma on here. I hope I said those right, guys.
I'll bet that's close enough.
Okay. Well, Paul, it's we've not been introduced or talked to each other. My name is Ben Townsend. It's good to talk to you, and it sounds like you've got more than yourself in the room there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do
I've
you
got
want
Brian and Josh with me.
All right. Hello, Brian and Josh. How are you doing?
Good.
So Paul, I got quick introductions on Mark and Molly, and I understand what they do, and we were sitting here talking. Can I get a quick rundown on what Brian and Josh do and how they're part of this?
You bet.
I'm currently the association president, and I was involved in the very beginning of the cell phone project when I worked in the Office of Internal Inspections. So.
Was that Brian or Josh?
That's Brian. This is Josh. I'm a lieutenant over this week over swing shift, which is the 3 o'clock to 1 in the morning shift, and as of next week, the commander over sex crimes. But involved with some of these web applications or apps that we've used in the past for our homeless outreach programs.
Okay. Very good. Well, I guess now that we have everybody on the line, and my name is Ben Townsend with Tracker Products, and I also have Mike Leo on the phone, which Mike and Paul are the ones that were originally talking. And Mike has asked that I come on and do this presentation here today. So I think, Mike, are you back there somewhere? Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I am. Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Good.
Thanks for arranging this. We're looking forward to, really showing you how we can provide a solution for you and getting to ask you some questions and really see how your department runs out there.
Okay.
So why don't we? So now that we've done introductions, I was talking to Mark and Molly before you hopped on, Paul, just to first of all find out what they do, and we were just getting into the part where I asked them the very important question of what is it they're expecting to see here today, just so that I can make sure that I understand why everybody is sitting here at the table. And so we started talking about some things, but maybe, Paul, could you give me a quick rundown on what you're looking for a software product to accomplish today?
Sure. So I'm the project manager over here for the information technology department here at the Muni, and this project, as was described to me, was to find a digital evidence management system. And there's a lot of different components of that. Part of it is some new phones, being able to more easily download data off of body cams and cell phones and whatever else, whatever other devices are out there that they want to quickly get into a management system. So that's kind of that's as much as I know about it. If Josh or Brian want to add to that, you're welcome to throw in, but that's kind of what I'm understanding this project to be.
Well, certainly the phrase. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What? Say that again.
I was going to say the only thing I was going to throw out is certainly digital evidence management. That is a massive part of what we do. So that I mean, you can almost just say digital evidence management, and I understand enough of that I can run and I'm going to show you how we handle digital evidence management for certain.
Okay,
Run away.
go for it.
Okay. All right. So, well, let's do this then. Let me make sure that everybody is seeing my screen right now. So I'm on the home page of our website. I'm going to close that down, and it takes me back to our software application. Is anybody not seeing that movement right now?
We're good here.
Okay, so I'll assume that answer is yes. So since I've got IT and infrastructure people on the phone, let me first take just 1 minute and cover some of the infrastructure of our product. So as we get into it, because inevitably those are the things that typically you're most interested in on top of the digital evidence. But we have a completely browser-based application. Doesn't matter what browser you use, although we prefer Chrome or Firefox. You can certainly use any current version of IE or even Safari if you would like. There are no plugins on any desktop. It is literally completely browser based. So whether you're using that from a computer or a cell phone or an iPad, a tablet device, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter with our product. Okay, you can run on any one of those platforms. Now, generally, our clients are in our cloud-based application, although some tend to buy them and put it inside their building. I won't spend a lot of time on our infrastructure today, but I do have a document that if Mike has not already shared with Paul, I'm happy to send it out to you. It goes over our entire IT infrastructure that is on Amazon Web Services. It's in GovCloud, so we're on a CGIS-compliant platform. In the end, I mean, I know that there's probably, we could sit here and spend hours talking about infrastructure and everything else, and I don't think that is what you're looking for today. That's probably something that you'll discuss down the road, but I just want to let everybody know those are sort of the nuts and bolts of that. Does that make sense? Does anybody have anything they want to ask about that, or are you good with that, just as sort of a brief overview?
Just send me that documentation, and I'll make sure people get it in their right hands.
No problem at all. We have a couple of documents by the time we're done we'll share with you, but that document will get into all of the nuts and bolts of that. Okay, so let's go back to the application. And so I'm going to go ahead and log into our software system. And now one thing I do want to throw out, because when I said this earlier to Mark and Molly, because the word digital evidence management was thrown out, that is a major part of what we do. But typically we work with the department to manage physical and digital evidence. So not only the, all of the audio and body cam video, but also the guns, drugs, and monies that are coming in. Because in the end, generally, the nice thing about being able to do both of those, and I'm going to sort of bounce around here, I'm going to open up a case that we have in the software. So I'm literally logged into the system. I'm going to come back to the dashboard because I really want to hit this. But the first thing I want to do is just open up a case that already exists. So I go into the software and I say, I want to view case 2017-0103. And so now when I open up that case, I'm seeing information about the case, who's the case officer, what's the location of the case. But what I really want to spend a moment on is focusing. Here's one tab that shows me all of the physical evidence, the guns, the drugs, the money, the actual physical things that we're housing. Each one of these rows represents a specific piece of evidence. If it's in yellow, it's checked out. If it's black, it's checked in. Anything in red has been disposed of. And if it's checked in, where is it stored? Okay, so there's all the physical evidence. I know I'm just glancing over that real quick, and right now that's all we're doing is sort of glancing at that. All my physical evidence, but then when I go one tab over, here are all of the digital assets related to the same case. So whether those digital assets or JPEG files or PDFs or even video files or car cam files, in the end, it doesn't matter what the media type is, you can load all of them in there. And not only are you loading all of these things in here, but if you were to go in and say, okay, here is a video that I want to watch. So I click on the video, it brings it up, it shows the video, it does a playback. I could download it, whatever I wanted to do with it. Once that is done, I can go into the details on this digital asset. It shows me all the hash keys that were uploaded on it, where's it stored at, all of the metadata related to that file. But then most importantly, at the very bottom, here is all of the chain of custody related to that digital asset. So anytime somebody uploads it, reads it, downloads it, whatever they may do, it's going to record all of that right along with it. Exactly how it would all of the physical assets as you check things in, out, dispose of them. It's tracking all of that. And in the end, I go back to the basic point that I wanted to make there is that in the end, I can come in here and view physical and digital right next to each other. And in a little bit, when we talk about getting rid of all of this stuff, because typically what brings people in our door is not that I want to track this. It's usually I want a way to better get rid of this stuff. Because generally, and I know I didn't ask any questions about how you're tracking all of your digital stuff right now, inevitably what we see, there's a large hard drive sitting somewhere on the network. People throw those things on there, and then they just sit there and accumulate, and nobody ever touches them. And eventually we run into problems when we're out of space, and then IT gets involved, and they generally just go in and say, well, let's get rid of everything that's older than a certain date, and we're not really sure exactly what we're doing. Now, I don't know if I described your scenario, but that is generally what we're out there seeing. Now, one thing I don't want to do is just sit here and dominate the conversation. I want to stop and sort of take a breath every moment. Does that make sense what I've thrown out there right now? Does that create any problems for people that we also do physical evidence, even though you don't have to do physical evidence?
Well, that seems okay here.
Okay. Okay, so let's take a step back now that you have seen what it looks like to have data in the system. I want to go back and talk about the dashboard because the dashboard is one of the more important features of our software. Because in the end, what is not very difficult is to collect all of these things. If you talk to people in the evidence room, it's not very difficult for all of these guns, drugs, and monies to come in. It's not very difficult to collect all this video off of a body cam. But what becomes very difficult is knowing what I have, how much of what I have, and all of these statistics that wrap around all of this stuff. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but are you doing body cam today? I mean, are you actively doing body cam, or is this sort of coming? Well, I'm sorry, what was that? You're not doing that.
We're not doing body cam.
Is that coming?
It would be smart to anticipate it eventually.
Okay, and you're right. I believe. I mean, I think that it would be very easy to argue that eventually everybody's going to be dealing with that. So, but again, I say body cam. It really doesn't matter whether we're talking body cam, images, car video. In the end, it's a lot of media. But the point that I was making here is, let's go back to the dashboard. One of the better parts of our product is this customizable dashboard for everybody logging in. So when I do log in, now this is showing me statistics about physical evidence. This is how much physical evidence is coming in over a period of time, how much is leaving. But as I scroll down this page, we start getting into information about all of the stuff that I'm possessing. And so, now again, I'm talking physical evidence here, but this is how much, this is how many items are checked in, how much is checked out, how much is disposed of, all of my firearm statistics. Here's all my currency statistics over on the right. And the reality is, all of these numbers that you see on the screen are simply searches that have been saved that gives me different data. So now when you get in, so the nice thing is, not only is all of this displayed on the screen, anybody can say, well, hey, that's really cool, but I want to add more to this screen. So one of the options you have is to go up here and say, I want to add a new statistics widget. And so we go in here and we put this in here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this to Paul's widget. Okay. And we just name it. Now you'll notice Paul's widget doesn't have any data in it. Okay, in fact, you'll notice I don't have any data on the screen that relates to all the digital evidence that I'm housing. So what I want to do is just sort of show you how we begin to accumulate those statistics and then display them under Paul's widget. So what we do is we go up here to the left-hand corner, and now I go into my searching mechanism. And here are all the different areas within the software that can be searched. Certainly, if you're searching against physical evidence, you'll use these case, persons, and items up at the top. But for the purpose of this, we want to get into media. This is all of the digital stuff that is loaded within the product. So we can go in here, and these are all of the different fields that are set up for digital assets. So we can go in, and let's just start out with something really simple. I want to know how much media is in the system that is still active and the upload date is older than a year. Now, as you see me building these things, the reality is once you start understanding these, you could build 100 different queries. And in fact, I've seen some clients build some really elaborate dashboards with this thing. And in the end, it's completely up to you as to how in-depth you want these to be. But for the purpose of this, let's go in and say, I want to search all digital, because again, I'm in the media area, so I want to search all digital assets that are still active, which means there's a physical payload file with it, and it's older than a year. So let's just go in and search. I want to know what that answer is right now. And so I can tell you within this system, there are 1,566 digital assets that are still active older than a year. Now that's pretty cool. I can sit here and scroll through these, and there they all are. In fact, every day I could log in and rerun that query, but I don't want to do that. I want to save this. I'm going to save this search, all active media older than a year. And we're going to save that. Now, I could go in and do, I want to build another one. I want everything that's older than 2 years. And then sit here and save that search. But let's go back to the dashboard. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go down to Paul's widget down here at the bottom. And I'm just simply going to click this add button. I want to add a data element into that widget. And now it's going to present me with every search that I've ever saved. And granted, I have a lot of them because I do this all the time. But there's my active media older than a year. I'm going to click. I can count the results, average them, summarize them. I want to count the results. And there's my answer, 1,566. So now, every day when I log in, I'm not digging for that answer. It's right there on the main screen. And on top of that, you can click the number. It's going to take you into that query and display all those digital assets. So when you take a step back and you start to break down what does a digital evidence management system really do for me, I would say the number one thing that it does is it allows you to go in and know what the heck you're dealing with to begin with, by running all of these searches and all of these reports. And so to sort of finalize this out, let's just say that Paul logs in and he goes crazy with this. And he builds this really cool widget that has 50 data elements in it that represents all these different things about your media assets. He can then take that ID right there next to the widget, the 1-9. He can give that ID number to anybody else that's logging into the system. They can go in and say, hey, I just want to copy somebody else's really cool widget. When they do that, it automatically copies all of those searches, all of that widget to their desktop, and they can manipulate and modify it from there. Okay, time for me to stop and take another breath. Does that make sense how you can go in and do all of this searching and have these potentially really elaborate dashboards that show you the totality of all of this stuff? Okay. I'll take silence as to everybody's good with that. I want to go back. I guess the other thing I do want to throw out is because I'm not going to go through every one of these fields so that you can see what is in here. But the reality is you can search against any of that. I mean, you can search against the metadata. You can search against the description field, the name of the file, the type of the file. I mean, there's a lot of searching that you can do with that metadata that is wrapped around the actual payload file. Okay, now another thing I do want to throw out, because this is extremely important when it comes to the digital assets also, let's go back to this case that I'm looking at, and you'll notice all of this digital media that is loaded within here. One of the important questions becomes, especially in today's world, where are all of those digital assets stored at? Am I storing it in the cloud? Am I storing it in my building? Where are we putting these things? Because we're in a world now where if you sit down with 3 different vendors, one is going to say, hey, we put this stuff in the cloud. That's your only option. And oh, by the way, it's a 5-year contract at $1 million to get that done. And then you may have somebody else that say, well, hey, we don't operate in the cloud. You can only put the stuff in your building. And we actually have a hybrid approach to it. You can either use our product and store the data in the cloud on our Amazon infrastructure, or you can use our cloud-based application, but the actual payload file can stay in your building. And the way we do that is we have an application called an on-premise file server. And so now let's go back and talk about body cam for just a moment. Let me run a scenario for you. And this would apply to any type of digital asset. But what we generally do with police departments when it comes to body cam is the camera is programmed so that when you dock the camera, it automatically takes all of those files, all the MP4s or whatever the files are, and it moves it over to a network drive on your network. And that's all automated so the user doesn't do anything. But the user could also have access to that drive, and they could dump files into that drive also. And so the way that this on-premise file server would work is you dump the files into that network shared drive that everybody has read and write access to. The minute the file goes in there, whether it's 1 or 100 files, our software will pick it up, recognize there are files sitting in that directory. It will take all of the metadata about that payload file, upload it into our application, and then it copies or moves that payload file into a directory where people don't have access to it. And so the only way they have access to the payload file is to come into our software and say, oh, hey, yeah, there's the file that I want. When you click on the picture or the link, instead of going out to a web device, it simply goes back to that drive that's in your building. We grant them access to that file, and then they can view it. But we've registered the fact that they viewed it within our software. And so the nice thing about that is you can use our web-based application to manage all of this stuff, but the actual payload file never has to leave your building. So whether that's cell phone video, whatever your video is, it wouldn't matter. You can take any application. We're agnostic to the hardware. It would not matter to us if you went out and looked at 30 different body cam vendors and decided we're going to use 3 different one of them. Or you buy one and a year later somebody else comes out with something really cool and you decide you're going to go with that. In the end, none of that means anything to us. All we care about is can the video device or whatever's recording the file dump the file onto a network drive, and then we pick it up and process it from there. Okay, now that was another mouthful. Did that make sense to everybody, how we're processing these files and how you can run them locally, or you can use the web and you can just drag them onto the screen and throw them into the web interface, and then that'll load it into the cloud.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
Hey, Ben. So let's say we got some cell phones we want to deposit evidence into the system with. So do you have cell phones with apps that you provide, or how are you doing that? What's the link to the system from a cell phone? I was going to say,
yeah, it's on a cell phone. It's not an app. It's you're literally using the web browser on the device. So Chrome, Safari, whatever you wanted. It's not an offline app. It is a web-based login.
So you would log in and then take the photo?
You could do that. Now, keep in mind, if you're on a cell phone, the problem is most likely going to be when you're on that cell phone, you're not going to have access to that drive sitting back in your building. So you could certainly be on a cell phone, take a picture, go to this page, and where it says right here, drag and drop.
We're talking about feeding the animal, not extracting from the animal. So we have officers that are out taking crime scene photos or
Sure.
photo of their case or collision photos. How do those get into this system and populate it?
There's two options. Either they go to this screen and they say, I want to upload these files, and then it reads their camera drive on their phone, and then they can upload them here. Or they're in your building, they have access to that network shared drive, and they can dump the files into there, and then it uploads it into our product. But keep in mind the difference there, the payload file in that second scenario is staying in your building on your network, not in our web infrastructure. Does that make sense?
What's the time? So the first example that you gave, an officer comes in at the end of the shift, and let's say he has, 3, 4, 5 cases that he's worked. He's got, let's say, on a big night, 100 photos. He's got a couple of digital recordings. He may have some other stuff. What's the turnaround for him to log in from his phone and be able to download that, and then magnify that by 30 officers coming in and doing that at the same time at the end of their shift?
If it were me, what I would say is going to be the quickest and easiest for somebody to do is to dock that phone to their computer and then process everything from like a screen like I'm on. And so you're not doing anything on the phone. You're using the application, and then from your computer, you can drag things off the phone and load them where they go. I'm only saying I believe that's going to be faster and easier than the user to log into the web interface on their phone and click pictures and do all of that. I mean, I understand the concept of what you're saying. I just believe it would be way faster to process them from the desktop and then just drag things to the screen or the network share or whatever you determine you're going to do.
We're trying to make it cop-proof.
And that's why
quite frankly, that's what we're
go ahead.
What we were kind of hoping to do is something like an app. Now, obviously, that's not what we're talking about here, but the officer basically hits record on his app. At the end of his shift, he hits download from his app, and everything is in between is done for him. He would obviously put case number in. It's all secure, but the act of going and downloading it from his phone to the computer and then renaming it, all that stuff, just it introduces a lot of opportunity for things to get messed up when we're talking about chain of custody and evidence.
I'm with you on that. And in the world of the body cam video, that's exactly the way that it works. They just dock it and it automatically uploads it. So you could still do that with your phone. You could just literally, I don't have an app to do it, but you could literally just say, here, take these pictures and load them over here, and it would be the same thing as what you're doing with the body cam video. But the thing about the body cam, it automatically just handles it. It knows, hey, here's where the drive letter is, and here's where I'm going to throw them.
Right, but that's because the body cam will have a system that you can record the case number on, the incident number, and so there's a way to link that up with something else, so when it automatically uploads, it gets filtered into the right slot.
Sure.
With the cell phone, if we don't have an app or something where they can enter in that case number or put in that information for it to upload, then they're going to be manually doing that here, which doesn't save us any time on the process that we're currently using.
Well, keep in mind, I didn't suggest that you could not log in from the cell phone and just click some buttons and upload that via the cell phone. That's absolutely possible. I thought the question was, what's going to be the easier thing? So I
get the easier thing. I'm just saying, we still don't have a mechanism. Like if I go take photos with my cell phone, I could upload them in here, but I've got to enter all that information in. No matter where I do it, whether it's on my cell phone or on the desktop or somewhere, I have to go into this after the fact at some point and upload all this information. and we were looking. I mean, we were hoping there'd be a way where you are getting like taking photos of a case. You log in, you put in the case number, you can put in the subject's name if there's a subject, or the address if there's an address, or where you took the photo at. And then you take your series of photos, and then it uploads, and now that batch of photos, say it's 25, is all tagged with that case number, tagged with the name, tagged with the address, and then it's stored. It sounds like this is going to be a manual process after the fact, where the officer might have, like the lieutenant's example, 5 cases. They now have to go and break the case up on their 100 photos and attach information that we're talking about to each photo.
No, and maybe I'm not saying this right, so I apologize if I'm doing that. So even if you're in this system on your phone and you're in a Chrome browser or whatever you choose to use, it's nothing more than going in and saying, hey, I want to add to a new case, or I want to view a case that already exists. You just go to the media tab and say, I want to upload these files, and you select all 100 of them. You don't have to do anything with any individual picture. You just select 100 and say, here, upload them. And then it will display all 100 on this screen.
Okay, so what if there's 5 different cases within those 100 pictures? Each case has 20 pictures. How, how
you would have to that? Well, you would certainly have to open up. I mean, they would basically go to the top of the screen. They would type in whatever case they want to work on first. So you would have to say, okay, now, I was on 2017-0103. Now I'm going to go to 2017-0109. I go here and say, okay, now I want to upload these 20 pictures into this case. And now, if they did that wrong, let's say they put them in the wrong case, you can upload them and move them from one case to another. But, I mean, yes, you're going to go in and select your case, upload all your images, then you go to the next case and upload all the images into there.
So I guess kind of where we were thinking, and maybe we're just spoiled because of our in-car video, and that is that as the officer's on that call, right, and he's taking those photos, he enters it with that case number. It's got the timestamp, it's got the location, it's got all that stuff. He moves on to the next case. He does that throughout his night. He comes in at the end, he hits start, and he's done. I mean, he just downloads. That work's already been done for him.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of where we were hoping to go.
And I understand. Right. I was going to say front loading was the word I was looking for. You were looking for an app that would store all of that on the phone and front load it so that when he was done, he just clicked a button and upload it. And all mine is post grabbing the files and uploading it from there.
Yeah, and it may be specific to what we do, but like quite frankly, we have a lot of employees that are coming in at the end of a 10, 11-hour shift trying to parse through all these different cases and try to make basically sense out of all the different things that they've done, write the reports, remember what all that stuff happened. We've found by experience that if you can allow them the opportunity to do it then and there on that case, you get a far better work product at the end, and all they have to do is press start. And plus, we got a lot of baby cops. A lot of young cops, they like the apps. They're a lot more user-friendly than all of us that grew up with carbon paper.
So let me ask you this. So let me ask you a couple of questions about that, because I totally understand what you're saying there. Number one, have you seen an application that offers an app like that?
So there is, it's not really for evidence management. It was built for something else, but there is an app called US Cop. And it's basically everything for cops. It's case law. It's got a built-in digital recorder which just uses your phone's recorder. It has like a photo app. But really, all it's doing is there's no downloading of that. It's not an evidence gathering like system. Mm-hmm. Especially it's not metadata. It's none of that. It's just basically some cop somewhere designed this for other cops. And quite frankly, I don't even think it's supported anymore. But we saw that and went, okay, maybe you could turn that into an evidence management system where you're using your iPhone to gather audio and potentially video. And that's what we're talking about.
But it prompts you. So it walks the officer through everything they need for that. So here's the case number, here's the incident number, here's the location, and then they snap photos, hit end, and then it's all packaged. And we are hoping for something like that could track chain of custody, which is important. And that would basically be like our dash cameras. When we roll in the back parking lot, shoots up into cyberspace, and they don't think about it again.
So probably that's. Oh, go ahead.
Our evidence technicians would handle the evidence side of it, like what needs to be disposed, what needs to be retained. All that stuff is not. The officers don't think about that ever. So that, I mean, there's two components here, obviously, but we were looking at the initial component based on cell phone.
Yeah. So I guess in that scenario right there, you have the front end that you're looking for, but then you don't have any of the back end that I'm showing off. Is that I mean, that sounds about a fair estimate there?
Yeah. Well, what we want is the front end.
What you're saying is the U.S. cop has that
right.
stuff, but it doesn't have all the detail and the tracking that we need.
I was saying, but you sort of need both of them. You need both of them to work because there's no point to grab it on the front end if it's a really awesome front end, but there is no back end to it. You sort of need both of them, right?
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So here would be my question. If you found a front end app that works for what you want, our entire product is built on top of an API framework. Why could we not? If you found something that works, why would we not have a discussion with them and say, hey, you've built the front end app that's really cool. What would it take to manipulate it and modify it to kick that data into an API that does all this stuff? So then you got your front end, it kicks it through the API, it's all uploaded, and boom, now you got your front end and your back end.
I would prefer to build our own app because I don't even think this is supported anymore. But quite frankly,
I can handle you building your own app too, because again, with this product, I can give you our entire API infrastructure and say, hey, here's if I mean, I didn't expect you to say that out loud, but if you have the option of building your own and you know what you want, I can literally give you an API infrastructure and say, here, now you can build anything you want, and here's how you can push it into our product. Or I'd be happy to talk to you. I mean, that's what you described sounds really awesome. I wouldn't be opposed to having a discussion about us building an app with an API, because obviously we know our product. Sort of what you're seeing here today is many years of lots of discussions like this where, okay, hey, listen, I understand that's the next evolution. If you can tell me what that looks like, that may be a way to talk. And I totally understand this is all based on the fact that you don't just go out and find another product that has the front end and the back end, although I'm pretty confident that, that concept is not out there. Not that it couldn't be.
Okay.
It's something to think about.
So I think we kind of see where we are here now. So you've got the back end, for managing the data and I guess for a DA to be able to pull it all out and process, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that looks like that's what this part is for. So we just need to get our hands around this front end app that makes it a whole lot easier for if an officer can download certain cases he's going to work on before he leaves, then he can select those cases, then take pictures and videos and recordings and whatever, have them logged and saved, go on to the next case, pull that out of his drop-down list of things he's downloaded, take pictures, videos, whatever needs to happen, and then by the time they come back to base, they can just automatically have all that stuff uploaded, right?
And however it interacts with something like this is however it interfaces. I mean, that's way out of our knowledge base. I mean, we have no idea. I mean, when you started throwing out acronyms, I got lost. But that's the idea.
Right.
They have a secure way to collect evidence, transfer evidence, and then that the evidence is stored properly.
Well, here's what I would throw out to you. The easiest scenario of all would be for you guys to sit down and say, okay, listen, we've seen the back end. We know what we've got here. This accomplishes what we want there. Here's what we want the front end to do. And just basically start jotting down some basic, here's what we would like a front end to look like. And then throw that out to me so that I can say, here's what it would take me to build this thing. Because in the end, unless you're just really excited about development and learning about the interaction with the API on our system, unless you want to tackle that, it may be that I'm able to do that work for a fraction of the effort. Plus, we've already got the people that knows our entire backend infrastructure. But it starts with you writing out a requirements to say, here's what we want this thing to do. And to be honest with you, the reason I'd love to build it, and I'd probably be willing to give a really good deal on this, is if I build it, I've got something that I can resell to everybody else now. And that just makes our product even better.
Right. So I'm glad we had this conversation. I think the ones in this room here, we kind of have our arms around what we think needs to be done. Can you shoot me a kind of a pricing on what you think a system like this? How do you is this a subscription? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so the back end product. So now that we've got a definition of a front end and a back end, I'm just going to say I'm the back end right now. So the back end is a subscription based service. The way we license this product is based on concurrent connectivity. How many people need to log in at the same moment in time? And so for small departments, that may be 1, 2, and 3 users. And for larger departments, it may be 10, 15, or 20. But in the end, we base it on people logging in simultaneously. And we don't care how many total computers you log in or how many total users you have. We base it on concurrent connectivity. And so each one of those concurrent licenses is an annual fee, for each license. So, and I can tell you the annual cost for each concurrent license is $3,100. And so if you needed 10, you would multiply that by 10, and that would get you the entire infrastructure. The only thing that would change that number, and it really doesn't change that number, is if you decide we want to upload all this data into the cloud, you pay the concurrent license, and then we charge by the terabyte for data storage.
Okay.
Now,
Understood.
I will tell you, the one thing that would be extremely difficult is if you say, hey, we like this cloud-based product, but I want to store all the data in my building. Building an app that people roll up to the outside and then have access to a server inside your building on a cell phone, that adds a bit of a challenge to it, not that it's impossible to overcome. It would certainly be far easier to just upload it from the cloud. That way they could roll into McDonald's and say, okay, here's my 10 pictures, here's my case, submit, and it grabs whatever network and uploads it, even if it's, the cell phone network.
Right.
So
if we put an RFP together to have this app built, what's your hourly rate for doing custom development?
Typically, we like to charge by the project just because we can give you a not to exceed number. And it also allows me, again, I can give you a number like that the minute I get a basics requirements list. It's really hard for me to put something together. I can give you an hourly rate, but generally in the end, it's better for you if I say, okay, I understand what you want. We'll agree to develop this thing and we will do it for a not to exceed this number.
Okay. Got it.
And to be honest, what you guys were saying out loud, now I understand what you were saying out loud and what it turns out to be may be different. It didn't sound like it was an incredibly difficult application to build. I mean, if you go in and say, hey, listen, I got a bunch of pictures. I want them to go into this case. Now hit save until I can upload them later. That really doesn't sound like a great challenge. I don't want to underwhelm it at this point, but it just doesn't sound like a big deal.
Okay, so I think I believe the people who are here on this demo are really looking for that front end product and not quite as interested in the back end. That's a different set of people. So
I understand.
I think we've seen, it looks like a great product. We just need to get the right people in the room to talk about that. So what we probably do at this point is put together some requirements and an actual prototype of what we want this thing to look like. Yep. And then, around here, nothing goes without being put out for a proposal request, right? So, so that's something we'll have to do, and you'll obviously be invited to bid on that. So,
sure.
But yeah, and then we can talk later on about setting up some another demo for the people who want to see more of this back end thing. So in the meantime, so anybody else on the phone, you have any questions or anything else you'd like to see on this back end?
Not for me.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, great. So
Can I
let me
throw out one? Let me throw out one thing real quick before you hang up. I was just going to say, if you could put those requirements together and let me see that, so I can understand the complexity of it. It would not be outside of the realm for us to say, hey, if you're buying our back end app and you're buying this many license, we develop and throw in the front end app. So I mean, don't run too far down the road of saying, hey, listen, we got to put this thing out for bid, because in the end, if you're buying the front end and the back end from us, we may be able to put those two things together and just develop it within that. So I'm not suggesting we're going to do that. I'm just don't put out an RFP yet until we've had a chance to look at what this might look like and respond that we can do it within our back end app. That makes sense?
Sounds good. I think we've got what I need. And anything else, Ben? Or are you
No,
good?
I'm great. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. I hope this was worth it. It sounded like we accomplished a lot. If not, help get some of your thoughts in a better line. So anything we can do, Paul knows how to reach Mike, and we'll go from there.
Great.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks
All
for
right,
your
see
help.
you guys.
Thanks for your
Bye-bye.
time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.